I don't have to be somewhere every night at 6:30. So
That is true. And is that something you miss or you don't miss?
I don't miss it.
Yeah.
I miss it on big events.
Did you think you would when you left? I mean,
no, I didn't.
We all make
you know, I've been on the air almost every day since I was 20 years old.
Right.
I mean, I worked all the way through college, and then Omaha, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Washington D.C., Watergate, and a lot of those were 7-day weeks. And then NBC News was, in a kind of a down period, so I was having to do everything. So when I was ready to leave when I was ready to leave. It was a great job. It was a time for Brian to represent the new generation and to step in. They've done a great job, so I'm happy. And
yeah.
I have emeritus status. I go on there from time to time. I go down and do Meet the Press from time to time, and I can pick and choose.
Absolutely. And you certainly, I think the last time I talked with you, you spoke about having a front seat to the events of the world. And
yeah, and I still do. I can still, go down, and they still let me in the White House when I'm in Washington. So,
remind me to go with you next time. Maybe I can come in on your coattails. Let's talk about, though, how you see the business has changed since you left, because certainly in the last 5 years, we have been, there has been an explosion of technology, but the explosion of technology in the last 5 years, and it's having an effect, and not necessarily a positive effect on ratings on the network level, certainly on the local level because of the internet.
Yeah, well, it is, and that's the reality that we have to deal with. It's complex. We're still working our way through it. There are some things that we let get out of hand. First of all, a new generation is coming of age believing that information should be free. It's not free. It costs money to produce this stuff.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to find a better economic model going forward. Secondly, the reality is that this screen is going to be much more crowded for a long, long time, forever. And we have to decide where you fit into it, where I fit into it, where traditional media fits into it. And I don't have an answer to all of that yet. I do think that the viewers have to take a more proactive role. There was a time when they could be couch potatoes and couch readers, as I described them. They would get home at a certain time, watch you in the evening, watch me in the evening, and we would do their work for them. Now, they've got so many more choices that they have to decide which of those choices they can rely on, which have credibility and integrity. And it's true in print as well.
Print's got a real
challenge.
So
the compact between the consumers of news and those of us who produce the news have changed. But the consumers have to take a more active role.
And it's hard to believe that this next generation is going to wait around till 6:30 to tune in.
Oh, they don't. I mean, that's already true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I don't. I carry my BlackBerry with me, and I get off, when I get off the plane here today, I click in to find out what's going on.
Right.
On a variety of sites. But I still, at the end of the day, want something that is interpretive and pulls it all together in a package. That's partly conditioning, partly out of loyalty.
Right.
The younger generation, they're busy at 5:30 or at 6:30, so they've got other places to go.
What about this country now? You've had a chance to, slightly different role, get a look at the landscape of this country. What's the big challenge facing this country now, even the world?
I've been all over America in the last 2 years. I mean, from north to south and east to west, very intensively. And I've come to some conclusions. One is that people are interested in solutions. They're not interested in the food fights that we see much too often in Washington, D.C., or on cable television, for that matter. If you go community to community, they're trying to work things out. And they're not saying, are you red state or blue state, or are you Tea Party or a Democrat? They're saying, how do we solve this? Ohio's a perfect example of that. I mean, you've been through real economic turmoil here. The great manufacturing state in the country has had to reinvent itself, in a matter of speaking. Right. And if you stopped to just continue yelling at each other, you wouldn't have gotten much done. So I hope that we can lower the decibel level a little bit. Doesn't mean you have to give up your most cherished views, but there are issues in every community in which we have to come together on. That's a big piece of what I'm finding. I'm finding fewer Democrats and fewer Republicans and many more independents. Many more people who are saying, I'm not in either party, I'm going to make a choice depending on who's the person who can do the job best for me.
It's interesting.
That's a big change.
Yeah, and you make a point there, though, about the cable TV, because hasn't it been amazing in the last few years how it seems that the MSNBC, CNN, Fox.
MSNBC, in fairness, that begins at sundown. You know,
Yeah,
during the
right.
day, and during the day they cover the news.
Right.
And Morning Joe, a broadcast that I like a lot. Joe Scarborough is a very vigorous defender of a conservative point of view, but they bring on a wide range of other people who represent everything from Pat Buchanan to David Remnick, the editor of The New Yorker. And I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see a wider spectrum, a greater variety of voices within a given broadcast. But again, this is probably not going to change either. Fox News found a niche, and they're extremely effective at what they do. There's no question about that, and it's entirely legitimate.
Boomer generation, and I saw your book back there, Boom, and of course I'm a part of that group. And The Greatest Generation is a wonderful book, obviously a wonderful read, and my parents were there. But the Boom generation, how do you characterize them? We were, in your book.
Well, here's how I'd characterize it. It's very large, it's very loud, very self-centered, highly educated, got a lot of money, and it doesn't have the connective tissue that the Greatest Generation did. Greatest Generation almost in a unitary way went through the Great Depression and then World War II and then came home and built the country. Your generation, the largest generation in the history of any society, some of them went far to the left, some of them went far to the right, a lot of them are still in the middle. A lot of them started their lives at 18, 19, 20, saying, do your own thing, I hate authority, I'm going to smoke whatever dope comes my way. Now you find them in the Whole Food markets looking at the fine print on organic foods, and they're on Wall Street, you know, making as much money as they possibly can, and they can't wait to show you their latest Beamer. So, I mean, it's a mixed experience, and they're now at a stage in their lives, as you are, where they have to decide how they want the back nine to play out. And this economic downturn has been a wake-up call. You know, it's not just going to get better every year as it has for most of their lives.
And it's difficult because this next generation is going to be a generation that probably won't achieve, in a matter of dollars and cents, the same levels as the boomers.
No, you know, I grew up in a working class background.
Yeah.
I came, you know, I was the first member of my family to go to college. I got lucky. I got the brass ring. I have daughters who went to Stanford and Dartmouth Medical School. They went to Berkeley and graduate school at NYU and Duke. They're all highly educated. They can't live as well as I have, even though they're making a lot of money. They live in San Francisco and New York. That has something to do with it. But when it came to purchasing a house, as I describe it, it was the GDP of a small country.
I know.
You know, I could buy a house for about my salary when I bought a house the first time, and then I traded up along the way, as everybody else does. And my kids, you know, housing prices have gone whack wherever you are in this country, and it's a big strain for them.
Yeah. Midterm elections, I remember one year watching you stand up on national television and say, the country has taken an amazing leap to the right. And I remember that you saying that, or a lean to the right. There's a pendulum, and certainly in the general election, it was much to the left. The Democrats won very well, did very well. Where do you see this one, midterms?
I don't think the last one, by the way, was as far left as I think that's part of the misinterpretation. There are a lot of Republicans who voted for Obama because they thought that he would have a moderate point of view. And I think he's still working out what kind of presidency he's going to have. He found it's a lot tougher to govern than it is to campaign. And a lot of Republicans who voted for him are now beginning to say, hey, what about us? These are the people who are more in the center of the Republican Party than on the far right. My favorite theory in politics is called the UFO theory. The unforeseen will occur. It's very hard to say, even now in May in Ohio, what's going to happen in this state in November of this year. Because so many things can occur between now and then. The economy can get a lot worse or it can get a lot better. Afghanistan may blow up or it might get a lot better. If you take something like Katrina, which happened in New Orleans on President Bush's watch, and he didn't respond very well to it. Well, if you have a calamity of that kind, that will have an impact on the election. What I said earlier is what I really think counts. I think a lot of people now are moving to what you can describe as an independent party. It doesn't have the same kind of formation the Democrats and the Republicans do. So they're moving back and forth across the political lines, and it depends how they're feeling at the moment, or what they think the candidate can provide for them at the moment, who has the best ideas. So I'd be the last one to try to project what's going to happen in November. Democrats know that they're in for a rough ride because the poll numbers are not good, and they're trying very hard to hang on to the majorities that they have in the Senate and the House, and we'll see.
Ohio is always a bellwether state.
Very big state.
You see that again even at the midterm?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you've got big elections coming up out here, and people will be watching Ohio because Ohio helps drive presidential elections. You know, the night that we called Ohio for Obama, I said effectively on the air, it's going in his direction, because if John Kerry had carried Ohio, he would have been the president, but he didn't.
Right.
So Ohio is that intersection that you've got to hit. Karl Rove told me before the election, we're going to win. We're going to win in Ohio. We're going to win in southeastern Ohio, where all those states come together.
Right.
You know, where Kentucky and West Virginia and Ohio all come together. And he was dead right.
Yeah. I know you've had a lot of great moments, the Berlin Wall coming down. If you had to, and I know I hate this when people even ask me on this level, but most powerful story to you, was it 9/11? Was it when you had, was it the Olympic bombing? I was there for that. Was it the Berlin Wall?
No, they're really the two biggest stories of my lifetime were 9/11 as a single story, and the ramifications of the consequence. We're still dealing with it.
Right.
Anytime you go through an airport, that's 9/11. Anytime that you have a car bomb parked in Times Square, that's 9/11.
Right.
Or a Christmas Day bomber on an air flight coming in here, that's 9/11. In terms of historic magnitude, I suppose the collapse of communism and the collapse of the Soviet Union was the largest story that I'll ever cover. No one thought that that would happen in our lifetime, or very few people did. And it liberated millions of people around the world, and it altered the political geography of the planet. And then from a personal point of view, you know, I covered Watergate. I was a White House correspondent during that. That was a great constitutional crisis.
Yeah.
And that was a very intense period of time. So I've been, as I've said before, I've been very fortunate to be kind of front row center for a lot of the events of our time. And it has also given me an enduring faith in this country. We work our way out of these, but we do it by doing hard work. We don't do it by just sitting around waiting for someone else to get it done for us. And we're now in that period where if we're going to get out of this economic recession and alter our consumption habits and our savings habits and determining what we want for values, what counts in our lives, we're going to have to think more carefully about it.